You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog Religious Podcast. This is episode number 357 of Eastern Carolina's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell, joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, cross-country coach to the stars, Zach Burcham.
Good evening.
That's the enthusiasm we keep you paid for. Co-host today, special guests today, are going to be Liberty Defender Sean Rao, making a triumphant return. We've been scheduling Sean once a month for the last 6 months, and today it actually worked out. So we'll see you again after Christmas sometime.
You never know. You never know when I'll show up.
Does that mean the previous times I've been here, it's because Sean wouldn't show up?
Sometimes. Probably so. Probably so. You guys know when you get a frantic text from me, something that I had planned for the day has gone horribly wrong. But this show has been planned for well over a week in total. So this is spectacular. And then in the middle seat today is a very good friend of the show, Mr. Forrest Plank, who is one of our month of May experts. But
expert,
as much as anybody else that we have in the month of May. So we are going to talk. These guys all have immense qualifications to talk about the things we're going to talk about, because we have three main topics we're going to get into. One, we're going to talk about the big presidential race and the things that have happened since we had a real show 3 weeks ago, because we previewed a bunch of things, and a lot of those actually happened. So we're going to talk about the vice presidential picks, the new ticket that the Democrats are putting together. They both are American citizens, so they're qualified to speak on this. And if you look back further, I think they're both landowners and men. So, I mean, they've had the right to vote the entire time.
And the right to pay property tax.
And it's true. And the second one, they are both citizens of the state of Indiana and both pay property taxes, because we've been blessed with actual policy, public policy coming from the candidates running for governor, which we haven't seen in the history of this show. I was so excited that they were talking about real things. I'm like, well, we have to talk about this now. And third, since they are American citizens, I assume they're cheering for our American Olympic teams. Oh, yeah. So I threw that in there so we could have a little Olympic talk too. So that's the plan. That's the lineup. I promise to have us out of here by 1 a.m. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Let's see. Got the introduction out of the way. We just did ourselves a nice 20-minute Patreon. Lots of good stories in there. Talks about food, places we should visit later in the month, and some more secrets. If you want to be a part of that, jump on patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty. You get the show notes every day in a special every show in the special Facebook group. And then you get access to that show live as it happens, and then it gets emailed directly to you through the Patreon account. If you want your business or your name mentioned at the top of every episode, $50 more a month gets you some special access. That's John Phillips, Annie Moore Buick GMC. And Blake Reese over at Sports Corner and Varsity Outfitters does all the embroidery for Boss Hog, and many other things too. So really cool group. With all of that out of the way, business out of the way, let's talk about the changes in the presidential race. About a month ago, we had a big show and we were talking about how maybe Uncle Joe wasn't going to make it through the end of the election. There had been a big debate. It did not go well. People were calling for a replacement, and then there was an assassination attempt that we haven't talked about, and ultimately Biden was told, "Hey, sir, you're running out of money. We can't continue." And when the boosters go away, Forrest, it's over.
Yep,
the game's over. So if there's nobody to pay the bills, it's done. So we had Joe Biden made an announcement saying, hey, I'm not going to run for president. I think he did it on a Sunday, like during Sunday as sports were going on. breaking into the IndyCar coverage for like the 300th time this summer.
Unprecedented. We just a summer of unprecedented.
It's NBC against IndyCar is what it is.
Yes. Well, maybe they're the reason why the weekend before there was the whole wall-to-wall coverage over the grazing that happened in Pennsylvania. So Biden jumped out of the race, and immediately it's like, okay, who's it going to be? We got Kamala Harris just stepping up. So I wanted to hear from you guys how you viewed this side of the conversation. If you had any feelings about, okay, we wanted to get rid of an 80-year-old, now we got somebody else, but there really wasn't much of a process to get there. It's just, this is next.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
You could see the writing on the wall, the way things were going for the Democratic Party. You know, it was a losing battle with Biden being in there. And then Trump gets shot, gets up, yells, fight, fight, fight. And that's won the election until Biden said, I don't think I'm going to do it. Here, let's throw Harrison into the ring. And now donors are coming out of the woodwork.
Hundreds of $1 million has already been raised since this happened. Sean, do you have you've always had a fun affinity around the Trump presidency.
I have.
So they've potentially stolen away round 2 for you.
Well, I mean, my affinity for, you said the Trump president is just really Trump, the cartoon character person. But with Biden, you know, it was like the debate was probably the worst public speaking performance by anybody on any level. And it just was so, frankly, embarrassing as an American citizen to feel like this guy is in charge of what's happening now, to the point where he kind of, it was like the Hitler's bunker thing. Like he was dug in with like Hunter Biden and his wife. They're like, oh, we're going to hang in there till the end. And then until reality just kind of just overtook things. And to the extent that it was the donors that forced him out, or he just came to terms with his situation.
He caught COVID too, right? I mean, it was just like a perfect storm.
And he was like, well,
like,
I'll drop out if there's some kind of crazy health problem. Oh, COVID. And then
and if the polling says, oh, I can't do it.
If I can't do it.
And then it turns out that he's trailing in every state.
Perfect storm there. And for Harris to be, it'd be just as if he had passed away. So to me, I'm not as bothered. I know the Republicans kind of have, in my mind, a little disingenuous kind of hand wringing about the process of it. Well, she was just brought in there and just sort of, you know, anointed or whatever. But in reality, who else are you going to put in there at this point? It's pretty unprecedented.
You're 100 days out.
You got to go with the vice president at that point, whoever that vice president is.
I'm on the side of I wanted the show.
We all wanted more entertainment.
I wanted the show of the Chicago convention and seeing an actual convention fight.
Let's play that out though. Who would have been the players? I mean, Gavin Newsom, maybe not.
So yeah, we talked about that when we had Betsy and Clay on. I think we had identified a lot of the folks that we're going to talk about for vice president.
Sure.
J.B. Pritzker, who has, you know, bajillions of dollars from his hotel money.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about maybe Bashir. Shapiro in Pennsylvania, everybody that surrounds Indiana. I think Gretchen Whitmer was somebody that had kind of had the name floated out there a bit. Secretary Mayor Pete Buttigieg is obviously a very popular person in the party. So I was kind of, and then obviously Harris as well was probably going to be the likely person. But and then I guess there was some talk the night before. Everybody piled in. The Democrats did a really good job of getting in line, and not doing anything. But I think who's a retiring senator from West Virginia,
Joe Manchin
was kind of trying to volunteer himself as tribute.
You know, is kind of a Republican.
Yeah, he was going to be willing and selfless enough to run for president to save the country.
You see the Aaron Sorkin thing where he was like, Joe Biden should drop out and Mitt Romney should run as a Democrat. It's like just the dumbest thing I've ever read. And it's like, and then the next day he's like, oh, never mind, we should support Kamala Harris. Like, come on, Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, Sorkin. I mean, he couldn't have written the shit that's happened in the last 4 weeks. It's truly been wild. So that was my one complaint. Is I've said since the beginning, the first one to drop their 80-year-old is going to win. Like I think that did change the race significantly. But yeah, if I'd had my pick, I'd wait 2 or 3 more weeks and see what happens. there are ways for them to move money around. If it had gone to somebody else, I think they could have the campaign could have funneled money back to the Democratic Party and then right back through and been okay. So anyway, that was my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
But we're here now, and it's a presumptive nominee.
We're here now.
And I guess I don't know if you guys knew this history, but until like 1968 was the last time that a convention really, the delegates had all the power.
Mm-hmm.
Because President Johnson, because of the Vietnam War, said, hey, I'm not going to run for re-election. He essentially lost to Robert Kennedy, I think, the New Hampshire primary. But in 1968, the delegate count didn't mean a damn thing versus winning the primary. So Hubert Humphrey, that Metrodome, right, the Vikings, Minnesota senator, I think, he just played the game very much like we just had in Indiana for the lieutenant governor race. He just played to the Democrat delegates. Didn't give a damn about the primaries, didn't pay attention to the primaries, didn't do anything with it, and he went where the votes were going to come from. So Kennedy and some others that were running played the primary game. They did very well, and then when it actually went to the convention and Kennedy had been killed, 1968 and 20, the last 3 years in 1968 have these ridiculous, like the two most traumatic times in the last century have been like both of these moments, 2020 to 2024, and then the summer of 1968. That's the closest parallel. But Humphrey won the convention, and that was potentially what could happen here. So anyway, it's not unprecedented to have the delegates choose the candidate anyway. So meanwhile, Donald Trump was riding high after the assassination attempt. Immediately goes into the convention in Milwaukee. The real reason Sean was in Wisconsin.
I did stay in Milwaukee 2 weeks before that, and I saw they were all set up for it already.
All the red,
all the decorations and everything. No, the security yet, obviously, because we're 2 weeks out. But it was.
Turns out they're not real good at that.
It turns out security was.
So yeah, I do have a question. So you either pre or post assassination attempt?
Pre.
So it probably got even crazier.
I heard they had expanded quite a bit of the security for obvious reasons, but the zone around, because they did it where the Bucks play basketball, is like Fiserv Arena or something. So the zone around the arena got like much more expanded, much more like militarized.
So I'm guessing there's no pole barns like around the arena.
No roofs. People can just kind of lay on.
I mean, it looked like they had a real hard time nailing down the Morrell and Fairgrounds is what they basically had in Pennsylvania.
That's probably a really accurate.
No, I'm not joking. I looked it up online and I was like, this must be. Oh my gosh, this is not complicated at all. This is a 4-H fairgrounds with like 2 rooftops, and they just like, that one's a little steep.
Gonna leave that one open
and ignore the people that are telling us there's a guy just went up there with a gun. Apparently, it's been a bizarre.
That whole event was so strange, and it was just so. In the moment, you're just thinking. I was thinking, what's going to happen next? Like, it's like, what's the next shoe to drop, and is this going to galvanize the Trump voters or get more independents to be like, okay, we got to rally around him, or is it going to be something where the shooter was some sort of left-wing nut, and which wasn't the case, and
we still have no idea of his motivation.
No,
other than he broke up Tenacious D, I don't know what he was trying to achieve.
I forgot about that bizarre part too.
He was just some weird loner that was just like, it seemed like he was willing to shoot either Biden or Trump based on what he was searching.
Based on his voting history, his political supporting.
Yeah.
Whichever one happens to come through this town, I'm taking a swing at
whoever it is, I'm a bored loner and I'm going to try to make my mark on history or whatever else. And it's just it's such a strange event all around for him to get barely grazed and have this sort of like divine intervention moment where he's sort of anointed to be sort of almost on like a spiritual demigod level. Like I've looked at death and I'm and it's just all this just weirdness around the whole thing. I thought for sure that the election would take a different turn. He was going to become invincible and then march towards that. And then Biden drops out. All the air's out of the balloon. I think the J.D. Vance pick.
So he did
not helpful.
He picked the first major millennial candidate.
He did.
One of our Forrest, you're a millennial, are you not? Are you right there with us? Or
Close.
Close enough. We're gonna claim you for the. Were you born in the 70s or 80s?
1980.
Yeah, you're with us. 81. It depends. We were into all of the diapers at the same time. JD Vance is somebody of our era, which is amazing when we've been dealing with folks that were around for World War II for so long. What do you have any emotional connection of, okay, yep, does this pick register for you at all, of like, yeah, okay, Midwestern guy or Appalachian guy?
I knew nothing about him, and I saw that he was from Ohio, so, and then I see the hillbilly elegy, and like, all right, well, the guy was a Marine, some pretty prestigious college education, and then you start really digging in. The whole couch memes, I just can't get past it.
So, all right, we'll get to that part in a moment, because I know two people that sell couches professionally, and I said, hey, you guys, anytime you sell a couch, and you just come with a box of rubber gloves, just buy one, get one, and you get a free, just to be a great promotion. You get all kinds of attention, and they all just laugh me off because they don't understand marketing. He's from the hillbilly elegy, whatever. He's from Middletown, Ohio.
Correct.
Yeah.
You guys
not
know
from Appalachia.
You guys know where Middletown, Ohio is, right? That's basically where it's the Cincinnati northern suburbs. It's the Fishers of Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
It's within 5 miles of Jungle Jim's International Grocery Store, not the mountains. So that's the part.
Definitely not coal country.
No, that's the part where I'm like, I could get it if you're from like Pomeroy, Ohio, or like down on the river, southeast Ohio, West Virginia adjacent. You're from
the Gallipolis area.
Yeah. You're from north of 4. Like you are. This is just vinyl mansions is where you live, and industrial parks and IKEA. You're not from this. This feels like stolen valor immediately.
Yeah,
that was the first feeling I got,
and that's where the Kentucky governor's taking the shots.
So that led to Andy Bashir,
yep.
who's saying this guy is not one of our people.
Yep.
He's not from Kentucky. He pretends he is. This is BS, and in my opinion, it's a very fair attack, because he's pretending to be somebody he's not, which we've seen before in politics.
Well, he's got a background with like Peter Thiel and like Silicon Valley. Like that's how he got to become a senator for the state of Ohio. Just like no other political experience at all that I'm aware of. No real law career to speak of. He then went to Yale Law, but he got involved in.
You're going to put your law background up against the United States senators.
I'd put my trial experience up against him for sure. I know how to do a jury trial. I guarantee you he doesn't. But at the same time, he was more of sort of this think tank, sort of Heritage Foundation sort of person, and the way he is on the stump, it's so weird. And so like the Diet Mountain Dew thing, did you see that clip where he's like, I had a Diet Mountain Dew today. Liberals are going to say that's racist because everything else is race. Whatever you do, it's going to be racist. And then no one applauded or said anything. It was the please clap moment about Diet Mountain Dew. And then like he was like talking about his wife and how she's Indian, and he's like, well, she's not white, but she's my wife. And so I was like, well, good job, buddy. Defended your wife against
she's my wife.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And then you compound that with Trump going against Harris on this she's not black thing.
So she's not black. Her husband's a crappy Jew.
And I'm like,
did he not do that at a national, like a convention for African Americans?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that
black
was
journalists.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Yep, he sure did.
And then he'll say stuff like Chuck Schumer's like part of Hamas. It's like, what? Is there anything like I think he is just crashing and burning and flailing because he knows his chance to be just a tomato can of an opponent has passed. And now he's going to have real debates with real policy things, and that's just not what he's up for.
Did you see today's quote from him? That the prisoner swap it's a testament to Trump's strength?
Yes.
How do you come up with that?
Anything that's positive is what he would have done, and anything negative, it shows how these liberal communists are ruining our country. And
so I feel like we get in this rinse and repeat cycle with Trump, and he is who he is. And then he'll put a handful of professionals around him, and they last for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will say whatever he says on the the perfect example is this debate. He had one debate with Biden, and then obviously he dropped out, but there was another one that's scheduled for September. So Trump is asked on a news call immediately after Harris becomes the candidate, will you debate her? Absolutely. Can't wait. Gonna do it for sure. And then his people realize that he is in a world of trouble. And then they release the statement of, well, we're evaluating. We don't know.
Yeah.
Because the professionals get involved and try to fix him. But then he will then say, no, they're wrong. I'm whatever. Have the bravado, not have thought it through. And then they'll quit or get fired. And then the next group of people will come through. And you just see this. Everybody that worked for him during his presidency was the best person in the world. And then they are either in prison or they are outcast and they're no longer allowed except for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just signing up for it again.
Well, and with the debate side of it, when you're a defense attorney, the biggest fear in a jury trial is having your client, your defendant, up on the stand. Because that means a prosecutor is going to cross-examine them. And, I hate to be this big Democrat love session, because I have a lot of issues with the Democratic Party, obviously, and I'm not a Democrat, but to think that you have a trained prosecutor who's been an attorney general who's going to cross-examine this guy who has been a criminal defendant, a convicted criminal defendant in the past.
37.
I mean, she's got to be just ready to just tear him apart with her ability to cross-examine him. And, that's just such a huge opportunity for her. And it's such a huge liability for him that I'd probably, I get why his team wants to back out of that at this point, because you're not going up against somebody that can't put together two sentences anymore. You're going up against a trained prosecutor who's telegenic, who can relate to people probably more than you can. And it's just not going to be, I think Harris would do extremely well.
But is she black or
format.
Indian, Sean? That's the important question.
That's not the weird question. Because you can't be biracial like J.D. Vance's kids are biracial.
You've got to pick a side. So this is the challenge I think they have, is that now this, immediately there was this swing of momentum. Harris gets in. They start doing state-by-state polling. And now Trump has a little bit of a lead, but it's diminishing. And there are two more major wind at the sail moments that are on the radar that are coming for Harris. Tuesday next week, apparently they're going to make the vice presidential, or between now and Tuesday, there's an appearance where the vice presidential nominee is going to be on the stage, and we're going to know who it is. And they're going to get, unless it's a J.D. Vance type, you're probably going to get a week of good press out of that, whatever that turns into. And then secondly, you're going to have a convention a couple weeks later. So there's two more really good weeks that are going to push Trump into that. He's going to be trailing. Whether or not it holds, I don't know. But you've got probably 4 to 5 percentage points of positive numbers that are coming for Harris in that time. And then you drop into a debate, and Trump may be in deep trouble at that point. It's not a favorable time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a list of names that have kind of been circulated around as the final, the short list, or the names have been kicked around there. The governor of North Carolina jumped out, Roy Cooper. He was on the short list, maybe. But he realized he's 67, and that's way too old to be vice president, because he wouldn't get to be president until he's like damn near 80.
So one of the things about him was that he was afraid to jump on the national trail because of the lieutenant governor running the state ragged. Is the lieutenant governor a different party?
I don't know how. In North Carolina, maybe.
No.
It's very possible they
Zach,
get elected independently. Yeah, you're a North Carolina expert.
The only North Carolina politician I know is Jackson.
And
Jeff Jackson.
Yeah.
I was blown away by
the soon-to-be former congressman.
The governor speaking out against the lieutenant governor in that matter.
I don't know. I don't think our current governor likes the lieutenant governor very much here either. The thought of him letting her be in charge, you'd be worried too. So the big names out there, the governor of Minnesota, a guy named Waltz, that's literally all I know. Andy Beshear, who we talked about, who immediately jumped in and started this kicking. He picked the fight with J.D. Vance, so it'd be the Hatfields and McCoys, Ohio versus Kentucky. Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who was considered to be a plausible replacement for the presidential side. There were some folks that we as we talked about a month ago on here, that maybe he didn't handle COVID the way that some thought he should. Pete Buttigieg, who's obviously a Hoosier now in Michigan, but he's the transportation secretary. He has been on TV more than I think anybody campaign adjacent in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
And seems to be doing very well in the TV game. Gretchen Whitmer, who's the governor of Michigan. And then the other name that really keeps floating to the top is Mark Kelly. You guys know who Mark Kelly is?
Yep. Yeah,
he's the he was an astronaut.
Gabby Gifford's husband, current senator from
Arizona. So as you guys look at this, and as white guys that are in a state that's going to vote for Trump anyway, it doesn't what we say does not matter. But you got 6 names there. Where do you think the smart money is? And Zach, you can play in this game too once you figure out who's in charge of North Carolina.
Well, yeah,
I assume it's Richard Petty. The answer is always Richard Petty.
It should be, yeah, or Ray Evernham, somebody based out of Charlotte. Let's be honest, the capital is at Charlotte Motor Speedway. But the lieutenant governor is a Republican and was noted in a Newsweek article to be a MAGA Republican, and the governor is Democrat.
So is it a situation where the governor would have to resign if he were to run for that? Some of those governor positions, I think that is the case.
I'm not sure.
Could be wrong.
He's run, and he's got the lieutenant governor's name is Mark Robinson, and he has a page that's Mark Robinson for governor. So at some point he is. I'm not sure how the if I'd known about this ahead of time, I would have asked my North Carolina friends how the system works for them. But yeah, they do have a split party.
Let's call Brad now. Let's just ring him up.
Oh my gosh.
Phone a friend.
Yes.
Wake him. He's one of the senior citizens of North Carolina at 7:57 Eastern time. He's been Wheel of Fortune was over at 7:30, so he's probably asleep.
Yeah, but so it is a split party. That's always amazing to me that like when you have your right hand person isn't who you want to be the right hand person, and is then apparently the opposite end of the political spectrum.
We'll just take this tangent for a moment. North Carolina is one of those original states, one of the first 13. When we were founded, whoever came in second in the presidency became vice president.
That's true.
So North Carolina may have done the same shit.
But in the North Carolina version of it, what would it be? You could imagine Biden and like Mike Pence or something. That'd be that'd be a last minute right there. But no, on the who she, my money would be on Shapiro. I think he's probably the most corporate, like friendly of all the Democrats. I think he could fundraise. I think he could make an impact in Pennsylvania.
East Coast recognition.
A lot of East Coast. But Pennsylvania is going to be a big state for her. She's going to win. So
that's what is it, like 19 electoral votes. I mean, Pennsylvania is a very important state that they need to win.
If she loses that, I don't know.
Aren't most of these, the governors on here from states that went to Trump?
Yeah, pretty. Well, I don't think that Trump won Minnesota.
No.
And he definitely did not win Arizona. They're still trying to sue their way back into winning Arizona.
Right.
I think their governor candidate from 2 years ago is still
Kentucky,
suing.
Though both went to Trump.
Yes. And Michigan did once. The first time Trump won Michigan.
Say she didn't want her name in, that she wanted to stay in.
She was mentioned, but
that's
I think
my understanding too. Yeah, I don't think Whitmer is going to be the nomination. But Shapiro, I mean, that's been the buzz right now. I could see Kelly maybe as more of a dark horse. I think Walz is probably too far to the left for Harris. He's more of the populist kind of. And he's a little bit older too. I think he's 65, something like that. So I think they want to skew a different route there. But my money be on Shapiro for right now. I think Pete is going to be a great, telegenic type of spokesperson for the campaign. I don't see him getting the VP nod for that. Bashir, I just don't know, because I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have on trying to deliver some of these states. I mean, he is the anti-JD Vance in a lot of ways. He does have executive experience, so that's a plus, but I don't know. I'd say Shapiro for now, Kelly maybe. I don't think any of the others, but that's just my opinion.
So I think Shapiro definitely brings the power, just because of Pennsylvania's location, that the number of electoral votes that are available. I think what Mark Kelly brings to the table is he was outspoken against the Biden administration with their border control policy, being from Arizona. So that could resonate with some conservatives that could pull them to the other side. So I think it's a toss-up between those two.
Yeah. Shapiro was an attorney general as well.
Yeah.
Oh. Ahead of that. Brian Nichols is watching, and he says it's going to be Josh Shapiro. Brian has anti-Philadelphia in him. He's just, to his soul, it's going to torment Brian. He moved from Philadelphia to get away from Shapiro. Moved to Indiana, and now Philadelphia's taking over the country. Now it's just trucking over here at his ballot anyway. You thought you got away from the man, and then you moved to Indiana, and he's on your ballot anyway. My heart's still with Buttigieg. Of course, I'm a transportation guy, so I like big bridges.
Some infrastructure spending.
I'd love to see it, but yeah. I don't think they're going to put a mixed race female and a gay male.
He's gay
on the ticket together.
Oh, I had no idea.
I would love to see it.
Yeah,
I'm with you. In the same way, I don't think they would have put Whitmer on either, because she's a woman, and just for whatever reason, I don't think our country is to the point where you can expect some of these independents to vote just based on gender, which is wrong. But I think that
if it was 1990, we'd go with the astronaut just because it's the astronaut.
Yeah. I don't know.
Shapiro makes so much damn sense for the for the fact that you could say, okay, I'm just going to move these votes from Pennsylvania over here,
and his ability to fundraise,
a net 40 change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it really shores up Pennsylvania. I mean, you still have to campaign hard there, but I think that it puts you in a lot different of a position to win Pennsylvania, to know you got it maybe in the bag at that point, and then, try to focus on some of these other swing states. Let him kind of do things in Pennsylvania, trying to shore up the votes he already has because he's already governor.
Does feel like anybody on this list feels like a heavyweight compared to Vance, who's been.
Oh yeah,
Vance has been around as long as Obama had, right? Like 2 years, and not really much of a legislative record yet.
Well, Obama at least had like state experience.
He was a state senator.
You're talking a first-term senator that's never held office anywhere else, right? I mean,
yeah,
he's not. And what major legislative things has he done? JD.
He wrote a book.
I mean, he wrote a book.
Turned it into a movie.
Turned it into a Netflix movie.
Venture capitalist made some money.
Well, his buddies made money. I don't know how much he made, but
he looks like a character in a political sitcom. Like if you made
the guy liner and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just like if you look like, what do we want to have this like character be in this sitcom who's just like the classic, a young and like ladder climbing Republican or any politician, but he definitely looks like, because there's like a little bit of like Gates in his look and stuff. So like his hair looks kind of plastic and like the perfect kind of beard. He doesn't look like a real person. I was looking at pictures of him, and apparently he wasn't even a Trump fan at first. He's had some pretty.
No,
he's had some pretty.
No, he called him Hitler adjacent.
He called it. And
a lot of his college friends have basically said this guy is a smell the wind and goes wherever.
Yeah. He looks it. He looks like the kind of guy. It's just like, and he'll say whatever he needs to say to do whatever he needs to do to get to. He's a means to an end guy.
All right, we're gonna do picks here like we do the month of May. Sean doesn't know, but Forrest is very aware. So is Zach. I want your who they should pick and who they will pick from you, and then we're gonna move on to the Indiana story we got. Zach, I'm gonna start with you.
No dark horse?
No, there's no dark horse. It's you can interpret them however you will.
Maybe they're from the sixth row.
I mean, you
cannot pick Elio Castroneves. He's not born here.
I was
apparently there's birther stories about Harris running around too, just because they like to invent them.
Oh my, yeah. I haven't really been paying that much attention. I was pretty disconnected from the world last week, but from our previous conversation, and what you guys have been saying tonight, Shapiro sounds like a good pick. I like Beshear too because it's a guy who's pulling votes in an area that I wouldn't think he'd be able to pull votes. So he's like moderate enough to maybe get some people to kind of change their mind, whatever. So either one of those.
So you're should and will. I'm going to nail you down here, sir.
Yeah.
Don't be a politician on me.
Well, should Shapiro. Oh, no, should Beshear, maybe will Shapiro. There.
All right.
Uneducated.
All right. Sean?
It's interesting because it kind of, if I were her, I'd probably try to want to appeal to these disaffected Democrats who don't like the way Biden has handled Gaza. They don't like the way Biden's handled other things. So you kind of like get back to basics, which is what I think, frankly, is what I think Trump's campaign needs to do, is just get back to freaking tax policy and talk about how we're going to lower grocery prices or whatever else. But
it feels like they were wildly unprepared for this unexpected change.
Without doubt.
One of the most exciting things I saw was Harris say, I know all these economic indicators look great, but people aren't actually feeling any of this. I was like, thank you, God, for just acknowledging it, because I get what Biden's trying to do. He's trying to point at real things he can point at, but at a certain point, you have to acknowledge what's actually happening in the world. And I was like, if she's just honest.
Stuff costs more money, and it feels like it does.
I was like, good. She just acknowledged a reality. And so people be like, well, she at least acknowledges what's going on, as opposed to, Biden was just kind of ignoring it. He's just like, look at the Dow. And it's like, yeah, whatever.
I think they should go more the populist, sort of everyman kind of route to shore up maybe union support, because the Teamsters guy was at the Republican convention, which was like, that was wild.
Came out and said that they were supporting
the Teamsters, probably UAWs.
UAW would, but like the Teamsters were there at the Republican National Convention, not necessarily to support the Republicans, but just to say, we're going to be for the working person and we'll go wherever we can be heard. But I think she's got to shore up that sort of working class union side of it. I like Waltz for that. I think he's a plain spoken.
So your should is Waltz.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. I'm going to go with that because I think that's it. She has to excite. She's already gotten like sort of the buzz of like, okay, I'm the anti-Trump. I'm a foreign prosecutor, prosecute him, so on and so forth. But she also has to like shore up their base. And I think he can do that. I don't think he's going to be as good at fundraising as Shapiro. I don't think he can do, he's from Minnesota, so what? Minnesota's going to go blue anyway. The will is Shapiro. I just don't see. I'd be pretty stunned if she went a different direction, which, all we've done has been surprised by everything that happens every single day. So that's it. But
watch her pick Todd Young. All right.
Yeah. The pick, Mitt Romney.
Forrest
Mike Braun.
God, Indiana needs the choice. You know who would slide up to the top of the ticket? Be Beckwith. If they did that here, Forrest should pick
Mark Kelly. So the Trump campaign's touting J.D. Vance, this Marine, this American hero. Well, Mark Kelly's the counter to that. The naval fighter pilot, served in the Gulf War, piloted space shuttle, married to Gabby Gifford, so was in that national spotlight when she was shot, nearly assassinated, won a senator seat after John McCain passed away, so stole a Republican seat. Mentioned earlier how he's been pretty tough on the border control policy. So I think those southern states, it could pull some draw from independents their way.
All right. And will pick, you're going to go Shapiro?
Shapiro.
Yeah. Writing this down so that it's forgotten forever.
To run the show, but you guys didn't have a show prior to the JD pick, right?
We did not.
So how would that have broken down with your should and would?
So I'm going to finish mine here real quick. Yeah, I think they should go with Mayor Pete because I think he's the best communicator in the field. And I think that, as Zach said, speaking to the American people in a way that makes sense to them. I don't care if you're not going to take Indiana away, and he lives in Michigan now anyway, and it's whatever, that's a toss-up state. But I think being able to articulate the message is incredibly important. And I think that's where they should go. I'm a different person because I don't give a damn about your race or your orientation. And I'm not that I'm not the target audience for any of this. But if you can communicate, you make sense to me. So Secretary Buttigieg would be my selection. I think they're going to go Kelly. I think NASA hero, senator, maybe a little bit of foreign policy experience, a little bit more time in the office than you see with Shapiro from Pennsylvania. I don't think you want a West Coast California person and an East Coast Pennsylvania person. I think you need somebody from a little bit more of the heartland. I think that Kelly makes sense there. That's my guess and my feeling.
Where's he originally from?
I don't know.
Before he settled down out of the military.
I don't know. His twin brother, literally twin brothers are, were both astronauts, right? I mean, the story that they could put out there with him. He's from New Jersey, I guess. But it's military. Nobody knows where the hell you're from or whatever. He's been moved around the country constantly. He's been, essentially much like John Glenn, you just dedicated your life to service of the country. I think that's the framing they could do with him is incredible.
Yeah, he's 60 years old. So for the last 42 years, he's been at it for the country.
Yeah. I mean,
he'd be a home run pick. I mean, he really would be. And I like your point about him on the border issue too, because that is the one that the Republicans have to make hay on in order to win. And if he can counteract that and say, this is what we're going to do at the border. Trump stepped in and he said, don't vote for that bill because it's going to make the Democrats look good, even though it was like one of the hardest, border security bills supposedly ever or whatever. I think he would be a home run. I think
he could actually speak to it too.
And he's very personable. And very likable type of guy.
It felt like he got into politics somewhat reluctantly.
Yeah.
After his wife got nearly assassinated, that's kind of when he jumped into it. But before that, he was very nonpartisan, and he was NASA guy, but he was visible and
he was actually independent. Wasn't he?
It makes so much sense to me. But no, as you said, Sean, this is full of surprises. So we're going to see them choose Charlie Crist. I don't know. It's going to be.
Al Gore.
Yes,
Al Gore.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter has 4 years of eligibility for any of these jobs. All right, so that's where we're at presidential. You asked about who they should have picked or what they were going to do.
Just hindsight, I just think that's interesting.
You had to have somebody that was willing to stand with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Vance, I guess, whatever. I thought they were going to go Rubio or somebody like that.
See,
but I guess
Trump doesn't like little Marco.
I think
Marco
I think he grew on him, but I thought that's where it was going to go. But I know that they got into this argument over whether or not they're from the same state or not. Trump was a New Yorker, but he moved to Florida, and I think constitutionally you have to be from different states. There was a little problem when Cheney selected himself. He was running the vice presidential steering committee for George Bush in 2000. And Cheney searched the nation and found out that he was the best possible choice to be vice president.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, he was in charge of the committee.
I looked all over the country and I'm the best guy.
Turns out I've done the math and I'm the guy.
That's such a Joseph Stalin type of move. It's just like I'm the chairman, and guess what? I'm going to be the boss too.
Laughing. I'm the best guy. Just like, gosh.
So he was the guy that ran Halliburton in Texas, big energy company. And then he said, "Well, I can't be from Texas right now, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to live in Wyoming for this." So because you have to be from different states. So he had been a congressman from Wyoming, moved to Texas to be the oil guy.
I have never heard that you have to live in different states to be on the same ticket.
I ain't heard that either.
Yeah,
really? That's the first time I'm hearing this.
You're supposed to be from different states.
I mean, going back thinking about it makes sense, but
yeah. So you can't have Florida or whatever. So there was some concern about how they would handle that.
Really from Florida, so
well, yeah, it's an accident. Marco's Cuban or whatever, but nobody's worried about where he's from.
Florida man runs for anything.
Well, yeah, because that rules out
DeSantis.
It rules out Tim Scott. Because I thought
he's
Tim
the senator
Scott was
South Carolina.
He's from Florida, isn't he?
He's the South Carolina senator.
South Carolina senator. So I was.
They all seceded. It doesn't. None of it counts to you.
Yeah, they're all. It's all sunshine and sunburns for me. I don't want to go down there.
It's all just beachy.
But it's all beachy.
You can only vacation in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin,
where it's kind of cloudy. No, I thought Tim Scott was going to be the pick, honestly.
Yeah.
Going into it, I thought he would have been. He's got the experience as a senator. He can try to get some African American votes.
Confirmed,
maybe
not Indian.
Confirmed, not Indian. Not that just blew me away. That whole interview was so tone deaf. It was so bizarre, focusing on people's race and identity.
Didn't the chair of that organization resign today?
I don't know. I was working today, so I missed. I apparently missed a lot of. We're going to get into some
I haven't been
stuff
on
at the end
Twitter
too.
at all or anything.
I missed some of that as well. All right, we're going to put a pin in the national side and talk some semi-local, some Indiana government here. Something actually exciting happened in the governor's race. We talked about Rob Kendall. Rob's a friend of the show, been on the show before many times. He has been pushing the property tax issue since 2020. And they got the governor candidate for the Republicans, Senator Mike Braun, who no longer wants to be a governor or a senator. He wants to be our governor. I'm trying to find a photo here because this blew my mind. He got him to put together a property tax plan or come on his show and they unveiled a property tax plan. This happened on Friday. And because in Indiana, you own your house every year, you have to pay taxes on your house. It's capped constitutionally at 1% of whatever the assessed value is. $100,000 house, 1% cap. We'll ignore the fact that there's some deductions that go in there, $1,000 a year. There's an exemption for a homestead that takes maybe $440,000 off of it, so maybe you pay $600 a year, whatever that is. Well, when real estate went insane, your $100,000 house all of a sudden is worth $250,000. So your property tax bill has gone from $600 or $700 a year to now all of a sudden it's $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. And people have been getting irritated by it, and they've brought pressure to the governor candidates, and Governor candidate Braun came up with a plan and said, hey, we want to revert back to the 2021 tax levels. So we want to start there, and then we want to cap so that you have no more than like a 2%. He carved out some unique rules. If you're a senior citizen or if you have kids in the house, you could have no more than a 2% inflation per year in this plan that they came out with. And then if you had none of those things, then you could have up to 3% inflation on your tax per year. That was the general consensus. They kind of ran the numbers and said that it wasn't going to work out real well over the weekend. So he put this out on the radio show Friday. Monday, the campaign said, well, we didn't really mean that we were going to revert back. We actually meant we were going to come up with this other credit thing, and it kind of blew up. So they rolled a plan out, and then it fell apart. On Monday, Donald Rainwater, who was a Libertarian candidate 4 years ago, and he is again this time, he came on Rob Kendall's show, and he came out with this plan. And he said, no more property taxes at all, it would require a constitutional amendment because we put that in the Constitution 15 years ago. He said one-time state sales tax on real estate, you pay 7% immediately when you buy your house and you're done. Or you could pay it 1% over 7 years and you're done. And you're done taxing your property. We haven't had talk like this from people running for office, and I don't know how long, of actual, even if this is pie in the sky stuff, of real policy. So I'm shocked and just wanted to talk about that part of, oh my God, these guys have real plans. And then I'm searching my phone over here. So when you all starts talking, I'll have the data. But I've lived to see the day where the Republicans were attacking the Libertarians over their tax plan and trying to draw lines between them. So it was on the Twitter account. So I got to find this. But what do you guys think? The Democrat candidate from here in Newcastle, Jennifer McCormick. There's a report that the Indiana State and Local Tax Revenue Force is working on. She wants to hear it from them before she releases a plan, I guess. But she did indicate in an Indy Star article that's linked in the show notes that she's kind of leaning towards taxing weed. So I guess she has to legalize weed and then tax it.
Yeah, you got to legalize that first and then tax it, which
it's a two-step deal too.
Will be the last state in the union to legalize marijuana.
But after everyone around us has
a literal contact high for anybody living near
Indiana
a state
has
border.
gone to every other state to buy their weed. Mm-hmm. By the time we legalize it, everyone's going to be over it, moved on to something else, and there won't be any money left.
Exactly.
My first issue when I read Braun's plan is that his emphasis was on local government transparency. And so as somebody who attends local government meetings and pays some attention to local government, it seems like the state does a really great job of cutting taxes and then handing that issue to the local government. Meanwhile,
he wants the local governments to file for referendums.
Yeah, he wants to go referendums and stuff. So like, I don't know how many times you can hand local governments the gun and tell them to shoot themselves with it, but it's just another round of that.
It's a blank.
Yeah,
that you're giving them though.
But it's like, but they know that, but they're raising all kinds of. He's like, look, I cut property taxes, and then they quietly issue a bunch of other optional taxes for local governments to have to raise taxes. So it's functionally not doing anything. Because we're getting hit with another tax somewhere else. They're just moving it around, but then he gets to point at himself and say, look, I cut property taxes. I like McCormick's idea in that somebody should actually sit and look at some data, which apparently Braun's campaign didn't do before he made this statement. But I'm kind of tired of the state saying, we're going to cut taxes. And by the way, the local government needs to tell you what they're doing with it. But meanwhile, the state's been sitting on this surplus year after year while the roads are terrible and all this other stuff. And I and Jeremiah both were on Twitter a couple weeks ago because Mark Martin, NASCAR driver, commented about how horrible I-70 was in Indiana. He specifically said, he's like, I-70 is terrible. He's like, one, the speed limit's real slow. He's like, but it's probably because if you go faster, you'll break a tow link. And he's rolling on like a $4 million motorhome or something. But then the local governments are dying. Like they are literally like, I know like local law enforcement agencies are struggling here to pay people enough because in part the state police just gave their people a huge raise. Like those guys are all making six figures within a couple of years. Meanwhile, so it seemed like another chance at the state to just say, look at what we're going to do. And then quietly, by the way, we're strangling local government to make this happen. The state government's not going to suffer at all.
Yes. So now this pass is doing to the local governments what the original property tax cap did to the school corporations.
Yeah.
We're going to take the money away, but it's available here. You just have to file a referendum and we'll give it to you.
And so in the Braun plan, they did say that you would have to do it. You couldn't do it during a town election or during a primary. It needed to be during a high turnout election,
which I'm fine with.
Which is the November election.
I don't mind trying to get. It's kind of weird to do it at a time when 26 people show up to vote, which is the way some elections right here are. So I don't mind that stipulation as to doing it with a bunch of people. That doesn't mean that a bunch of people are going to roll in there and have no idea what they're looking at when they see the referendum. But
here, I finally dug around and found the angry tweet from the Republicans at Don Rainwater. I've lived long enough for them to be attacking the party I worked so hard for as a real deal. July 29th. They said, here are the facts on Rainwater's tax plan. 1, Rainwater's biggest issue is with the Braun plan is that it protects seniors and low-income families along with everyday Hoosiers. Because Rainwater said you're creating different classes of people. You could have two houses side by side and one person has a different tax bill because they're 60 and not 35, and the 35-year-old that has no kid. My household would have a lower tax rate than Zach's household because we've not been blessed with children, right? Hoosiers would pay more in the first 7 years of the Rainwater plan than they would in 22 years under the Braun plan, essentially front-loading the property taxes. Because as you own your house, you know, every time you buy a house with the Rainwater plan, you're paying sales tax on them. But if you keep your house, you're done.
It's going to hurt the flippers.
It would be a retail deal.
What a shame. We can't do HGTV.
I haven't owned a house longer than 7 years. Ouch.
Gonna name a wing of the school after Forrest.
Rainwater's plan will cost Hoosiers more and destroy the housing market. Meanwhile, the Braun property tax plan is practical, protects low-income families and seniors and saves homeowners thousands in property taxes. So yeah, that's the story that came out from the Republicans attacking the Libertarians. You know they're taking things seriously when they're attacking the third party candidate. That was the biggest takeaway I had there.
I saw my first gubernatorial political sign in a yard today, and it was Don Rainwater.
Nope. If you go down South Main Street, they're educators for McCormick.
Yeah, well, I did see on Washington Street today in Indy there was a massive, I guess it was yesterday, a massive Rainwater for governor. In Indianapolis on the Near East Side.
Yeah, but I mean, like that was the first one I saw. So I was like, oh, like he's out there right with everybody else. So yeah,
August 1st.
So the Republicans are taking shots at the Libertarians, and meanwhile McCormick's sitting back saying, "Oh, the task force make the recommendation instead of me promoting what I think we should do." Oh, by the way, we could tax weed.
We could tax weed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Michigan. Michigan just handed out $80 million to local governments this spring in marijuana tax revenue.
The best path for McCormick to have a legitimate chance of winning is for Rainwater to take the same votes and more from the Republican side as happened in 2020.
Oh, just squabble with the Republicans and let her just quietly.
If those guys are fighting over the economic interest group voters, and the right flank gets disheartened with Braun, that's where McCormick and her 35 to 40% could potentially win. If you get into a world where 20% of the vote is landing, 20 to 25% is landing with Rainwater, and those are pulling a lot of votes away from Braun, and then she happens to be there with 30 to 35%, then it's a competitive race, and who knows what happens. I think that's the best possible way that you see McCormick win.
I think that this race is going to shake out a lot like, is it 2016 when Holcomb, John Gregg, and
Rex Bell
and Rex ran? That I mean that one was nip and tuck, and it came down to just a couple of percentage points, didn't it?
It did. And one of us had a candidate in Methodist Hospital as we got across the finish line. Interesting. So, any feeling on a tax plan, where this should go? I'm just happy they're having a real conversation.
Yeah, it's refreshing when, on the national stage we're talking about who's which Olympic athlete is a woman or isn't a woman, or who's black or who's not black.
Whether you're a good Jew or not.
You're a good Jew or not, if you're a part of Hamas. So it is refreshing to actually talk about real policy, which is frankly what the Republicans should do anyway. No, I think the McCormick approach is right there on that. You look at the data, you come up with a plan. You don't just do it on the fly, because this does impact people.
But McCormick's been running for governor for a year.
Sure.
Right? Like, everybody else brought a plan to the table. Property taxes didn't just become an issue this year. I think you have to give some credit to folks for bringing ideas to the table and just saying, well, elect me and I'm going to do what what this group says. You got to give me some framework of why I should be voting for you.
It's a pretty bold sword to fall on, though, right out of the gate.
Taxes?
Yeah.
So does
any one of them, either one of these guys are going to have to change the Constitution to get this done.
Fiscally, is Don Rayburner's plan make sense? Like, does it actually work? Are houses being turned over?
I think the disconnect is that Rainwater, it doesn't really necessarily give a damn about being revenue neutral, because if the government has less money to spend, that's a
and the government
then that's an achieved goal for Rainwater and his group.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to be revenue neutral, because there are other places to go with it. What does it need to be? Would you guys be willing, or has the conversation become, okay, maybe 7% isn't the deal, but if we change the sales tax to 8% across the state of Indiana, and you got rid of property taxes, but you charge this on the houses, does that work? Well, part of the Rainwater plan also says that if you bought a house right now, you're grandfathered in, you're set. They both have holes in their plan. Rainwater says
only on future purchases,
right? Beyond future purchases, so you're done. You're done paying property taxes if you stay in. If you can find it in yourself, Forrest, to not move again.
I don't know. We did say this is our forever home, so
his homepage is Zillow.
You got to take away the keys to the internet from your wife and her Realtor.com account. That would be one side. One of the other problems or challenges, I'm having a Charlie horse over here. So if I was crawling around the ground, you're going to have to pick this thing up, Sean. Braun said, we're going to reset you back to 2021. But if you built a house in 2022 or 2023, you get what you get. Mm-hmm. Sorry for buying a new house. You get the new tax rate no matter what.
Bought,
yes.
Then.
No, if you bought the house, whatever that house had for a tax levy in 2021 is the number. So if you bought a house that existed in 1970 and it's been there and it had a tax bill, that's the bill you get.
So if you built a house in 2021, then Your tax bill is whatever the
your tax bill's tiny, but you got a new one since then that's been improved, so you're stuck with the new fancy bill forever. And then they're locking you in on the other deal.
This might be like angry liberal thought too, though. But those rules should not apply to corporately owned homes. Like the whole problem where all these companies are buying all these properties, they should just
rental properties.
Not even just rentals, but because the ones that are coming in, they're like they should just put the screws to them. Like not really, like don't give them a higher tax rate, but like you're not getting any breaks. Like they're not getting the homestead credit anyway. But some of those, because there's some of them are the reason why property taxes are up, because they were offering really dumb money during COVID. Like they were like, oh, I'm asking $200,000 for my house, and they're like, we'll give you $260 right now. Or like they were pricing out normal people.
Yeah, in some neighborhoods, they single-handedly reset the market.
Yeah, and so those people, I think, for doing that, should have to pay the taxes on the property. Like if they. Yeah, I don't think they should get exempted from that. Normal people, yes, if you're living in the house, set the rules. But if you're sitting on a bunch of houses and it's a business thing, then congratulations, it's part of doing business.
You want to tax our corporations? Say what?
Yeah. So much is, so much of the housing market is based upon corporate speculation, things that aren't, just because housing has become a commodity rather than, something that just people use and people need, to the point where that is just going to drive the bubble and eventually it'll burst. I mean, it's just like anything. It's the tech bubble. It's a .com bubble. It's all these, the financial bubble. It's just another thing. And so long as the corporations will pump money into buying these houses, trying to flip them or trying to be a landlord, it just depends on who's going to end up holding the bag, and unfortunately, it tends to be the little guy, not the big guy.
Yeah. So I am kind of torn on the view of corporations owning homes, because in some of these neighborhoods, the homes that they've bought and put a little bit of money into, the normal person wasn't going to go invest in it. So at least it gets these homes back on the tax roll for the localities that may not have existed had they not.
The difference or the concern a lot of times is the absentee home owner. That's not a corporation. That's just a guy who's at his laptop sitting in Nevada or Oregon or California who's buying cheap property and then is working off of an old picture in the auction from when the house was still there. And then it turns out that the house that they bought doesn't have any windows left. They bought the thing in a tax sale, and then it sits there for 2 more years and gets worse. And then they lose it in a tax sale again because they only spent $700 on the damn thing, but now it's not worth anything. So it's just the property just sits there and it's a blight for the community.
So
that's the difference.
Has to take it,
yes,
put it in a land
and
bank.
then it's Zach's problem. Yep. But that's the reality is that there are different buckets of people that are buying those properties. There's the absentee investor. There's the corporate investor that actually has people that are going to try, and then you have your local.
And I don't necessarily
your local homeowners, and then you have the local.
And I don't necessarily have a problem with like
moguls.
a local guy who owns a couple of houses that are as rentals. That's a different group.
At least if it's a local person, it's an investment in their community.
Yeah, and so I don't have an issue with that necessarily. It's the corporations that are just run the people that ran up prices on houses because they were just buying them up and keeping normal people from owning houses. I love for there to be a way to just you're not getting a break because you're a corporation that owns X number of properties. Therefore, sorry about you.
Stay tuned on this one to see what actually happens. Any of these plans are something that we can talk about, and that the candidates, hopefully we'll have a few of them come through the doors here, and we can pick their brains on them in person. But they all require the legislature to do something. Mm-hmm. And any of these major changes, we were stupid enough to put property taxes in our Constitution, so now they're there. So now we have to deal with it for a long period of time to undo property taxes. No executive edict is going to solve this. You have to have it done by legislators. So stay tuned. But I'm glad we're having the conversation. All right, put your Olympic hats on. The the Olympic NBC music, brought to you by Kodak and Coca-Cola. We're in Olympic mode. The Olympics are coming back to America. Did you guys see that?
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City, and just before I think we all retire, we'll be 60 years old, maybe 50s.
Did you get twice? That's where it was before.
Yeah. Mitt Romney brought it. This is the night of Mitt Romney references. He managed the Olympics in like 2004 for Salt Lake City, and they're coming back.
Somebody said that's funny. By the time it comes back, Salt Lake City won't have winter anymore.
Sochi, Russia is the coastline, the Mediterranean coastline, essentially, of Russia, and they hosted the Winter Olympics. So it's they had palm trees in Sochi, but
did you see where they're doing surfing?
Tahiti.
Yeah.
And the Olympic Village is a tiny little.
And they sent Colin Jost there, and he's like, good for him.
He has. Did you see his updates?
No, I've seen some of
Colin Jost has a staph infection on his foot.
Oh yeah, I saw his foot's like all messed up.
And he said he's the medical tent has been treating him more than any athlete, and they all know him on first name basis.
And he jokes that, like he sits like at the surf. But they're surfing off a sandbar that's way out there. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yeah, they're kind of over there. I can kind of see him. It's like, he's like, whatever. He's getting paid to go to Tahiti for like 2 weeks. So what's the matter?
The fact that surfing is an Olympic sport.
It probably gave one of the greatest pictures of the Olympics, though.
Oh, the guy.
That one picture, the dude just came off the wave, and it's like somehow he and his board are on the same level, and he's like, because he's just done, but it's like, one of the best pictures of the whole
giving
thing.
a number one or a thumbs up or
something.
Wave?
He's celebrating after nailing a wave, and it's like
we're gonna host. So now that Tahiti is France's version, that we are not gonna have the record for the furthest away. But when we have the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles here in a couple of years, Oklahoma City is hosting events.
For what? Is barrel racing going to be in the Olympics?
Can you imagine?
I think it's like a handball or something. Somebody doesn't have courts big enough.
Can you imagine though? You train your whole life. These Olympics are usually in fairly exotic, cool places. In your sport, it's going to LA, Southern California, like the American dream, and your event is going to be in Oklahoma City, the Dust Bowl, in the middle of summer. It's going to be it's always interesting to see. I guess has anybody died from the triathlon from swimming in the river? I haven't heard about
Not yet. The infection hasn't set in enough.
Give it some time. Give it some time.
I'm trying to find. There we go. Softball, whitewater, and world-class whitewater. I don't know what whitewater is.
World-class
and
whitewater in the Red River?
And softball venues. So the softball venue, they can't build one. And I assume that
the whole state of California, they can't have a softball venue.
So Oklahoma makes sense
wild.
for softball.
But
isn't that where they play the NCAA championships?
Maybe, but the whitewater rafting isn't like.
You just skipped over
places.
Colorado.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Idaho.
If you're gonna throw one weird thing in there, just I guess look, we're gonna send whitewater, Oklahoma City. Let's see.
I wonder what Oklahoma City's bid was to host that.
40 horses.
They have
and
a man-made course.
The River Sports Rapids Canoe and Slalom Center.
Oh, so they've got a center built there for them. Yeah. So that's probably where they're training. Like our team probably trains
competitions.
There you go. 2028. They're going to have 28 competitions in Oklahoma City. Good for them. Yeah, so they need a win. All right. So back to the current, to Paris.
Just keep the fertilizer away.
Are you bothered by the Olympics? Sarah, my Sarah. Sean also has a Sarah, so I get it's very confusing, as if Sean's wife is calling me and telling me these things. Sarah's like, I don't like we know what happened. I'm like, you're paying too much attention because it's on TV at 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
I want to go back to 1996 where the news comes on in the afternoon and they say, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know.
Yeah. Now you just get push notifications on your phone, but I'm paying so little attention to it that when the Olympics are on TV, I half-heartedly watch for a little bit and it's fine. But yeah, Sarah's watching and she's like, you know what happened? I'm like, don't tell me because I have no clue. I like that it's time delayed because it's tidy. It's like boom, boom, boom. You're in and out. It's tape delayed.
It's efficient that they show the highlights, move on to something else.
It's like Olympic red zone coverage.
Yeah. It's always the big moment.
I do like, though, every Olympic, cycle, you'll come across something obscure, something you never watched before, and just get fascinated with it for like 2 hours or 3 hours. You're like, what have I been doing?
So what's your sport this year, Sean?
I've been watching a lot of rugby, actually.
The women's sevens?
I've been watching them, and I've been watching the guys, too, and it's been like, this is just wild, because I've never really, I know what rugby is, but I've never really watched it. And just seeing these people just crush each other, no pads, no helmet, it's just really fascinating.
That last run for the U.S. to secure the bronze,
that was incredible,
awesome.
I don't
know what the play's called, but it was pretty freaking awesome.
That was like Marshawn Lynch, that big run he had in Seattle in the playoffs that one year, and it was just that, and like just handball and some of the shooting, the air pistol thing.
Oh, the guy
doing the little sideways thing with the rifle.
One airsoft pistol guys, like I think it was like the gold medalist might have been South Korean, and they had like these crazy glasses.
Yeah,
on.
the glasses are wild.
And then the dude who won was from, I forget where he's from.
He's from Turkey. The guy with no glasses,
61-year-old dude. He just like walked up and like, nailed it, and just
no glasses, no ear protection, nothing.
The glasses they have the flap that comes down. And
like to reduce glare. This guy did. Right? This guy looks like he's just like, and I heard Saul, he's like, I'm just smooth with it. He's just 61. It's just a dude. They look like they pulled off. It's kind of like the curling team.
Yeah,
and they showed the South Korean, and like he had this crazy like set of glasses and stuff on, and then the guy's just like he's just like he got up and it's kind of nailed it, and he got
that was wild to see too.
Now there's an American who's been getting a lot of
Clark Kent.
A lot of attention on the pommel horse. Who this guy, he takes his glasses off and he's just squinting the entire time. And he's some sort of an engineering student and is like a savant. Where he medaled.
He's on the team just to do the pommel horse.
He sits there for hours and hours and hours doing nothing.
He can solve. He solved a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds.
He's doing an interview doing a Rubik's Cube and joking about the memes. He's well aware of what he looks like to everybody.
So the story with him was, I guess he wasn't going as far in gymnastics overall as he could have or wanted to. So he said, I'm really good at pommel horse, so I'm just going to stick with pommel horse. And he's just been doing that. And so, his last name is kind of hard to pronounce. But he just kind of sat there. He was only there to do pommel horse. That's all they brought him in for. And he's one of the few times it might have been the only time that the Americans have brought a specialist for one event for like the overall team competition. And he just gets up there and his entire time.
Steven Nedriskek.
45 seconds. But if you watch, like pommel horse is one of those things that,
he won bronze.
I never see it any other time. You can't screw up because he never stops moving. So the minute if he screws up, then he loses momentum and the whole thing's over. But he just never screws up. So that was
where part of his spinning. He was on one handle, and I think he did like a 720 on one hand on the handle. Walks down to the other handle, does a 720 on the other hand, single handed, and the core strength to do that while keeping your momentum going is just insane.
He became an internet favorite this week after having sat out on the sidelines for 3 hours during the first 5 rotations before he anchored the U.S. on the specialty event. He's like the kicker. He's like having, the absolute, he's the Adam Vinatieri.
He was like just
Thank God
out.
He wasn't Mike Vanderjack.
Yeah, no joke. They showed him just like zenned out. Yeah, and
they didn't get him liquored up.
Like during that, at one point, he like posted a picture on his Instagram reels, and it was a solved Rubik's Cube on a laptop with all the moves he made to solve it, and it was like 9-point-something seconds, sub 10-second Rubik's Cubes. So a super smart guy. Those are the kind of fun things that come out of the Olympics. These just random people that you would not know about otherwise.
So I've enjoyed the gymnastics. Simone Biles with her everything that she's done, but her floor exercise where she was like 12 feet high on a tumble pass, and she's like 4 foot tall.
She's like 4'9" or something like that.
And then Katie Ledecky last night in the 1500 where she wins and you don't see anyone else in the pool because they're all at the other end when she's touching the wall.
We haven't got to the Lee Diffie portion of the track and field. We're not seeing that yet.
No,
I always enjoy Lee's voice, but for me, it's probably a matter of when you grew up and when you cared about the Olympics, but gymnastics was such a big deal in 96 with J.C. Phelps and Carrie Strug and all. So the gymnastics, I always kind of gravitate towards paying attention to. I have no clue what's going on in the world of gymnastics the other 4 years, the rest of the time. And then you kind of pay a little bit of attention to the swimmers because there's so many of them from Central Indiana.
Well, and
had the trials
with the
here.
Michael Phelps influence over the last decade, everyone is drawn to swimming and the excitement of it.
And then Ledecky,
and it's racing. It's racing. So it's against the clock.
And racing. Ledecky is a monster of a swimmer. Like they showed that when she got that one, I think she bumped off the last person. So the top 20 times that have ever been done in the 1500 freestyle is every one of them is her. She owns the
fastest
top
20 times in the history of the world
are all her. and yet there's nobody else in the frame. She won by like 10 or 12 seconds. There's a great picture. Another Olympic thing is apparently our national mascot is Snoop Dogg.
I love it.
And
Snoop Dogg and Flavor Flav because they have to go.
Literally had Snoop did the crip walk holding the Olympic torch, which looks like a big joint. And like, where are we as a country?
But Snoop Dogg swimming with Michael Phelps.
That was cool.
Is the Olympic stuff I'm there for.
Yeah. Well, I know he ran like the 100-meter dash at one point a couple weeks ago.
34 seconds.
The opening ceremony, everybody's pissed about it being anti-Christian or whatever. Peyton Manning did the opening ceremony.
Peyton Manning and Kelly Clarkson.
Yes. And I was just like, first of all, I don't know how ESPN allowed it. I don't know if maybe they don't own that much of Peyton Manning because he was on NBC. But I'm just going, he had his wristband out, and they were joking about how he had all these countries memorized or whatever. And I'm like, this is what the Olympics are for me. It's just an opportunity
you can turn on the TV at any point for 2 weeks and be entertained by something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's something interesting on, and you might not have ever heard
for
of
something that you know nothing about.
Yeah, nothing about.
Damn it, you're rooting for it.
I mean, I saw a bit of the equestrian sports. They're doing the equestrian sports in the gardens of the Palace of Versailles, a 5-kilometer course. In one corner of the and you're like, man, France, that's a flex right there. You did it at a Royal Hunting Lodge. And
put the beach volleyball courts at the base of the Eiffel Tower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like so good for them.
I discovered today as I was putting notes together what blew my mind. I told my wife about it, and she was not excited. So I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to show them. The USVI, the United States Virgin Islands, so St. Thomas. If you're from St. Thomas and you want to compete in the Olympics, you're not for America. You're on the United States Virgin Islands. It's like pretends like it's a country. And they've been there since the 60s. The Olympic Committee says, okay, cool. You can have your own country because it's easier to represent the Virgin Islands than it is.
Their territory, not state.
Correct.
So does Puerto Rico have their own Olympic team?
I don't believe they do. But the British one does. So right next door to St. Thomas is Tortola, the British Virgin Islands, and they're their own country too, because why the hell not? And I think the Spanish Virgin Islands.
Yeah, that's
because 2 teams of 2 is more powerful than a team of 4.
It is interesting to see sometimes the movement of people because like there'll be people that carry multiple citizenships for the purposes of popping around for the Olympics. And then the other interesting thing is with the NBA has become so international. They used to just be only people you knew were on the American team, and now there's a bunch of Eastern European and European guys that are playing for their own teams, but are NBA, like all-stars, MVP caliber players.
Yeah, when France came out and played Japan the other night, Wemby's out there with a guy from Japan guarding him. It comes up to his waist.
I think he's like 5'6". This poor guy's 5'6", and he's guarding a guy who's a literal 2 feet taller than him.
Got to box out.
So, 1988 in Seoul, Korea, the Virgin Islands medaled one time. Do you want to guess the event? The event they would have medaled in Seoul in 1998?
No.
I see your screen, so I can't play.
Sean's the only other person that could play. It'll make some sense.
Yeah.
It'll make some sense. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I get it.
Would it be like surfing? Surfing?
Close.
Nearly. Nearly.
But if you surfed on a boat, what would that be?
Oh, sailing.
Sailing.
Okay.
Yep. You got some sailors.
I forgot that sailing is a sport. That's the whole thing. I remember this stuff every 4 years, then I forget it. It is entertaining, though.
And there's a refugee team, too, which I was like, I don't know how you get there, but they're countryless, so they assemble them. I'm surprised we don't recruit for that. Just you can be a refugee.
I haven't watched enough to see is that Russia able to compete as Russia, or are they the Russian Olympic Committee again this year?
I think it's Russian Olympic Committee again.
The Rock again because they can't compete because of doping. Yeah,
and then there's a Palestine team.
Just everybody accept that,
which is well, they have to now. I mean, the Olympics accept it. So
what would happen if you matched up Taiwan against China in an event? Would China just be like, we can't compete against ourselves?
Yeah, you don't exist. So,
so there was a picture from one of the events. The 3 medalists were North Korea, South Korea, and either Taiwan or China, and just the symbolism of those 3 like celebrating together.
Yeah.
So. The refugee team has existed since 2016. Current members of the refugee team are from the Congo, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Iran, Cameroon.
Wait, I thought South Sudan had their own team because they damn near beat
Well,
basketball team.
But if you are on the outs with your home nation, you can't go back there because of fear of imprisonment or whatever.
Reshare the wrong thing on Facebook.
Afghanistan,
you can't play
Venezuela, Syria, Cuba. No Americans on the refugee team. I guess.
Oh, so these are individuals from these countries.
They can't go back home. So they are in the,
they're not wanted in their home country. So
yeah, they are. They're Snowden essentially. But they can still play in the Olympics. So that was another one. I'm just like, what the hell is this?
Oh,
that's my other big takeaway on the Olympics.
I'm also glad that the basketball team actually cares again, because they didn't care for a few years.
Are you guys feeling the excitement on basketball?
What? I mean, I think they're having
South Sudan damn near beat them in an exhibition game.
I think they're having a good time now.
They're turning it on now.
Okay, here's the thing though, is that for a couple of years they didn't care, as in they didn't show up. As in half the best players in the NBA in the United States would just be like, no, we'll let the young guys do it. And then they got beat, and it's like, no, this isn't a young guys thing. This is if you're the best player, go represent your country and get a gold medal. And then they kind of figured it out. So yeah, like I watched a bit of the game against Jokic's team, Serbia, and
I watched
it was like an all-star game. Like they were like at one point, Curry shot a 3 near the end of it and didn't even watch it go in. He was already walking down. So like they should be going in and playing like an all-star show game, like Showtime. I would love to see though. I thought this to myself. America could field 2 teams, and one of them would just be like, see if we could build the best street ball team, like playground basketball. And they probably would be capable of beating the NBA guys, but that would be interesting to see like street ball, like 3-on-3 be an Olympic sport too. But
so with the Olympics rolling back around, all the old clips are coming back out, and I saw the clip this week of I don't know what year it would have been, but the United States' first game was against Spain, and the Lakers had just signed Pau Gasol, and Kobe said, he's going to set a screen, and I'm going to run right through the MFer. And everyone's like, what? And he comes out, and he sets a screen, and Kobe runs right through him and just lays him out and walks away from him. And it was a statement of, I don't care, we're teammates, we're brothers, but
this is international war.
Yep, and I'm going to run through you.
So that's a great clip, great story.
All right, Mr. Zach Burcham, I think we're at the point in the show where we can start to do final thoughts. What do you got lined up for us over there?
I don't have much. I'm still barely functioning. I'm back from vacation. Don't really know what day it is. Not much sleep. Everybody watch the weather. But other than that, I'm trying to think. Broad Street. I will say, if you're local and you're listening to this topically, Broad Street Cruise this weekend, and more importantly, it's the annual bike raffle. Kids night. So come down there. It's not even a raffle like bikes. Show up. You get free tickets for the raffle, I believe, for the bikes. And like last year, I'm not sure if how full tilt they're going to go out, but last year they had like 200 bikes. Like they went and tracked down a bunch of bikes, and a couple of them are Pointer Brothers bikes.
Pointer Brothers gave out a lot of bikes.
They gave out a lot of bikes last year, and like, I think it's just demand was so much that they had to go get some more. But Pointer Brothers was like extremely generous with the number of bikes that they showed up with last year. They're doing that again. So I think it's like 5 to 7 o'clock or something like that. Check Facebook for when you can sign up for that. And go support that.
School supplies are going to be given away.
Yeah. So go check that out. Because if anybody doesn't know, and we need to get them on here, but they're hard to get on because they're busy guys. The Pointer Brothers are like tremendous members of the community.
They spent like 40 seconds on the show.
The middle school camp.
Yeah, we caught them during Christmas walk, I think. And but like they'd be interesting to have on the show for a longer form thing, because they're great guys, and you kind of saw them coming in, and then they moved their shop over by the skate park, and they like lead group rides. They do a bunch of they'll build custom bikes and then raffle them off. Like sell the tickets for different. I think they have a VFW one, or they did. They've done a police one to raise money for various charities, whatever. And they bring a slew of bikes to this thing they did last year as well. So that's something to go down to.
So this summer, Pointer Brothers, they did a camp for the middle schoolers. It was 3 days, I think.
Oh, they built bikes.
The kids came in, built bikes. They gave them safety gear, taught them how to ride, do tricks, how to maintain the bike. Kids got to take the bikes and the gear home. So
yeah, that is spectacular. Mr. Sean Rao, If somebody needs some legal representation, what do they go?
Yeah. So I'm a practicing attorney here in Newcastle. Find me at Galleon Round Law Office, LLC, down at 595 New York Avenue, 765-529-3787 for family law, criminal defense, general questions, I suppose. Things I'll give you answers if I know what I'm talking about. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I won't give you answers. Unlike here on the podcast, where I'll give you any kind of answer.
Whatever you want to hear, I'll tell you.
You like, answer you
like what you heard here? Call me at the day job.
Yeah, call me at my day job. No, things have been nice and steady, busy after some summer vacation, and things have been good. Yeah, it's hard to believe summer's almost over now, and kids are going back to school. My wife's getting prepared to go back to school. So.
You got the Henry County legal system figured out and sorted?
No.
All right.
No, it's called the practice of law. It's not called the perfection of law.
They're still working on it.
They're still practicing.
All right. Anything else on the final thought side? Did that got you? All right.
Not much. No. Interesting conversation about this crazy presidential election, and glad to be here with you guys. Appreciate the invite.
The important thing is to remember it's the most important, consequential election of your lifetime.
Until the next one.
I've lived through unprecedented times for 41 years now. Forrest Plank, final thoughts?
Back to school.
Yeah, so, that's that time in the Plank House.
It is. Certainly not back to school for me. Those days are gone. But I could do a Billy Madison impression, but I'll spare the audience of that. State Fair kicks off tomorrow. Don't know if I'll make it out there or not. I got spared from having to go to band day.
Zach and I are credentialed media this year for the Indiana State Fair.
Oh, wow.
We're going to have to go at some point.
You go and take the mic. Maybe do an episode like you do on the Christmas walk.
That sounds a lot like work.
That sounds fun, though.
Get some good man on the street.
Just show up at the State Fair and see what happens.
Yeah.
Tell me about that corn dog, sir.
Yeah.
Did you pick that up out of the fryer yourself? So you skipped out on band day, but it is back to school time.
It is back to school time, yeah.
I notice the kids are back in school when I'm driving in my office and I'm stuck in traffic in Muncie. Oh yeah, they're back. It's the first day of school. Everybody has to go drop their kid off, take pictures. It's a whole production, and it's like they abandon their children after like 3 days. But that first day or two, everybody has to drive their own kid to school.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. It's. I don't remember it being that way. My parents never came to the school when I was a child.
Oh, no.
They didn't take pictures. They didn't have chalkboards, none of that stuff. And now it's like you got to have the first day, the last day.
I don't
you got to
know if my
drop them
parents
off.
knew where my school was.
Yeah, it was a surprise if your parents showed up. Very different.
No,
very
I was
different
in trouble.
experience.
If my parents showed up in school, I was in trouble.
It wasn't a good time.
A lot of getting out of the car while it was still kind of rolling back in the day. Just like, oh, we're here, get out.
You actually got taken to school?
Yeah, because I went to a school that was not as close to my house as possible. So I went to a different. So my school was like a mile and a half away from my. So for Newcastle, that's a far.
I mean, that's like 2 towns away from Newcastle.
Yeah, that is. Probably went to try. Yeah.
Final thoughts from me here. Apparently, there's a rumor that Juan Montoya is coming back to NASCAR. Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's team is teasing that he's going to make a start or two.
It is
to cap off his career. Connor Daly's testing an IndyCar today at Gateway with Juncos Hollinger Racing. So all of Argentina is going to rain hell down on Connor for firing the Argentinian driver. So he should probably hire some security. Next week, our
Just not
guest...
Secret Service.
There's some of those folks that are looking for work. Next week, we plan to be back here on Thursday. We have tentatively confirmed our guest. It is Tim Durham, the author and producer of Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. He has a new book called Macbeth for kids, which is not for children because I think it has some horror in it. It's
HORROR.
Yeah, there are some killings, but he illustrated the thing himself too. I think the story is he was flying to Alexander Rossi's bachelor party in Colombia, and he wrote the book on a plane.
Oh boy!
And it sold out immediately. I texted him like, "Hey, congratulations! It's going to have you on our show, but you sold out the book, so it doesn't matter." He's like, "Oh, come on, anyway."
Yeah, I tried to get a copy too because it sounds hilarious, and you can't get one.
Yeah, well, this is the trick in the business: is you invite the author on the show and you hope they slide you a copy. If not, we're going to have to wait in line for the second printing of Macbeth for kids, but not for kids. This guy is. I'm so excited to have him in the studio because nobody understands the man. Allegedly, he is the person that introduced Marco Andretti to Ludacris. How the hell did Tim meet Ludacris? We don't know, but he is the link.
They had a Q&A on their podcast this last week, and he said they had at least 7 questions of who is Tim? How did Tim meet anybody in the IndyCar series? Where did he come from? And they're like, I don't know. And they just moved on, and they still didn't answer the question.
So I expect to get none of the answers next week, but we're going to prepare for the questions. It's going to be a fun time. So Tim's a great guy. I've gotten to know him over the years, and the fact that he's going to schlep out here to Henry County is going to be he lives in Los Angeles, but he's IndyCar's on break, and I think he's hanging out with some folks over in the Midwest. So we are supposed to have him next Thursday. With that, we say thank you guys very much. We're back for a few weeks in a row. We'll see you next Thursday.